Money in podcasts is like a goddamn Easter egg hunt when you're 3. The money is everywhere, right? And everyone is just looking at the biggest egg. But if you're paying attention, I'm not even joking. You fill your basket and you're going to have a few of those jelly beans that are going to be way more than that big motherfucker that everyone else went against. There's so much money everywhere. I haven't even mentioned it.
Welcome to PodBiz, the money behind the mic, where we get into the business of podcasting. I'm Norma Jean Belenky, a podcast and media strategist, specializing in marketing and audience development.
And I'm John Kiernan. I'm a podcast producer, and we're asking the question that's on everyone's mind. Where is the money in podcasting?
Each week, we talk to podcast industry professionals, marketers, and creators who are turning podcasts into a thriving business and making the industry what it is today.
With real revenue, real strategies, and real results.
If you're looking to grow or scale your show, and of course monetize, you're in the right place.
So let's get down to PodBiz.
Today we're speaking with Jack Levy, co-founder of Manifest Media Productions. We'll be speaking about the 360 aspect of podcasting monetization and how you'll want to fill your Easter basket with lots of little eggs. And we'll be speaking about the investment that paid off big for his celebrity podcast that he didn't get a cash payout with on the front end. Let's get down to PodBiz. Jack, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So Jack, where's the money in podcasting?
The money in podcasting is 360. The problem is many people think this is where the money is. I need to get ad dollars. I need to get a sponsor. I need to go to Audible and pitch to get money to make my show. But I'll tell you the best way to look at where money in podcasting is now. For the independent podcaster, I'm not talking about Universal or Lionsgate or Sony. It used to be that musicians would have a hit record and they'd make lots of money from the record company. That's not how it works anymore. Musicians have a hit record, the company keeps the money, and they go on the road. So money is made 360 for those people, just like podcasts. So there is money in programmatic advertising. There's money in host-read advertising. There's money in sponsorship. There's money in endorsements. There's money in licensing. There's money in merchandising. There's money in live appearances. And there's money in ancillary. So there's money 360. And the problem is, I think so many people focus on the wrong money source. And not that it's wrong, but wrong for their model.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have a food cart, I advertise differently than McDonald's. I find my customers different and it monetizes different. So I think you have to look at what's there. And oftentimes, and this is in most businesses, people will look at where the money is and they'll stand in the longest line, right? And imagine you're standing in a line to get into a nightclub. Well, if you're there with Audible and iHeart and a billionaire and blah, blah, blah on your show, no different than a nightclub. If you're there with the trendiest people and you're in the further, no one knows you, you're not going to get in that way. You're not. You're going to wait along a long time. And that is how to get in, but it's not how you get in. And so there's 360 monetization. And it's interesting. By the way, I'll tell you another one. We got a feed drop. So another show reaches out to us. And this is beyond anything else I mentioned. It's like Found Money. And they said, hey, we have an audience who's similar to yours. We're going to pay you, a solid 4 figures every 100,000 downloads. Yes, every 100,000 downloads. We get 400,000 to 700,000 a month. And so it adds up. Now, we had to work for that. That didn't come our first month. It didn't come our 5th month. It didn't come our first year. It didn't come our second year. But a lot like a fitness competition, you can look good after a year, but you're not going to win after a year. It's going to take you a few years to compete. But literally, there's money 360.
Great answer. I think what you guys do at Manifest Media really speaks to that as well. And you've had some really big successes. So, when I talk to clients about audience development and strategy, that's such a great point, right? People want to get in the longest line and wait. You have to figure out what's going to be the shortest line to where you want to go for your show or your property. I think that's a really important aspect and strategy in terms of monetization and audience growth as well. Tell us a little bit about some of the journeys you guys have been on with some of your shows, because you guys have had some really fun success.
Well, listen, Table Read is the best example. Just like you, during the pandemic, I had always been in recording studios. And so, Universal started getting their USG audio label up. And I had been a Universal Red Book vendor for 17 years. So they said, hey, we're setting up our podcast division. Can you help? And I was interested in podcasts because I had always been in studios. So once I helped them set up, I ended up selling a show with Will Packer to iHeart called The Lower Bottoms. That was a scripted show. Now, that was not our studio. I did that with Will. We brought it to iHeart. It was an iHeart show. They gave us money. We did it very, Hollywood style. But what I quickly realized is you don't need iHeart for anything, literally, because we already had the studios and the people and the Hollywood connections and the editors and the physical space. And so outside of a marketing budget, they weren't needed for much of anything. So Mark and I started Table Read on a very organic premise. I had a friend, his name is Sean Sharma. He's on the Screen Actors Guild negotiating committee. He's in leadership. I've known him for years. And he had been doing table reads around Los Angeles, right? Let's say this famous writer had a script and he was trying to sell it. Sean would call a bunch of his actor friends. Some of them, some of them are, play a cadaver on CSI.
Yeah.
And they just all get together on a Saturday with friends to read a script for a writer who, might write for an NBC show or, maybe did the movie Event Horizon or, whatever.
Yeah.
But just
And
community.
Really quickly, for everybody listening who's more from the podcasting world, a table read is where you just do a read through of the script with different actors assigned to the different parts. So you're hearing the read of the script. You're not seeing people physically act it out, but different actors are acting out all of the different characters. It's really
Absolutely.
fun.
Listen, I'll try to give you a shortcut to that too. So a buddy of mine, Sean, who works in executive leadership at SAG, and he's on the show The Chosen, which is the #1 show in the world, had been hosting table reads around Hollywood. And this is where writers take their scripts and actors get together just like a jam session and they just read it, right? It's not overthought, almost like a dress rehearsal, but no dress. They just sit in chairs and read it. So Sean invited me to a table read. And there's celebrities, in a room acting like themselves, not their outward selves. And they were hilarious because they're punching up jokes and making jokes with each other. And I thought, oh my God, this has to be a podcast. People never see celebrities like this. How much fun to see the process. So we talked to Sean and we started doing it as a podcast. And there was a script that Sean had done. So the idea for what he does in Los Angeles. See, because I think there's ideas for podcasts everywhere. Everyone has an idea. As soon as we got into it, literally everybody was calling us, I got a podcast. It was a way for actors to get the story out, for the Hollywood to hear the story. So we recorded one, which was Ren Fair versus Aliens, Harry Aspinwall, actor, writer on the rise. It had won a bunch of Coverfly awards, but had not sold. So we said, let's do one. And we, hired our actor friends, went and recorded, mixed it. And then we sent it out to showrunners who we know, right? I sent it to a buddy of mine, Sonny, who was the showrunner on Vampire Diaries. I sent it to Tom Holland, who created Chucky and Fright Night. Right. And I said, hey, this is what we're doing. You guys, any of you interested in having a script, presented like this? And we sent it out to 5 showrunners and each one said, yeah, we want to do a script. So I contacted Alice at Podcast Review. I didn't know Alice. Right. So it was very organic outreach. And by the way, I reached out to several people. And I sent her a note saying, this is what we're doing. It's really a pivot. Hey, I'm an Emmy Award winner. We have these people who are on TV, but we're a community. And we're doing these reads for everyone to enjoy. She was very kind. More than writing up the show, she liked the model of what we're doing. So she wrote up the construct. She didn't say, I listened to the show and it's great. She said, look at what these people are doing. It's really fresh, unscripted podcast. And what's amazing is we ended up, we got an article in the Hollywood Reporter just because we said, hey, this is what we're doing. And again, no PR firm. This is not, anybody can do this. If you're genuine and you have the right outreach,
Yeah.
So they did a story about us. And then Fred Armisen reached out. And Fred said, hey, there was a script that the networks passed on, one of the best that I've read. Ty Burrell and I are doing it together from Modern Family. We'd love to do it on table read. If we do, Ty will be the narrator. I'll pick up some smaller parts. And so we were like, are you kidding me? Yeah, come on down to the jam session. And so they came and, we started getting some good attention. We got... maybe when we hit about 1 million downloads, which took us 4, 5 months, 3 months, I don't know. And by the way, again, this is community. So it's not just me saying, hey, I want to promote my podcast. I'm going to pay some promoter. How can I get every person at the table is there. So if we have 15 actors and one of them has 100,000 followers and one of them has 5,000 followers and one of them has, we get this echo. So we were on Buzzsprout at the time. Buzzsprout reached out, and so we got our first advertisement was from Nature's Veil perfume, which I thought was funny for what we do, but we did a Nature's Veil host red spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had been working with Nomano. You know Nomano? Nomano makes this sound capsule here in podcast. By the way, I didn't just have it. Literally, I was working with it. So and this is not an ad. You can cut it out. So here's the deal. When I started looking into podcasts, they make this thing here, right? It has these little lavaliers and this is not an ad. You can cut it out, right? I clip it on. You clip it on. We hit this button.
They're mics.
Yes. But not only is it mics, you shoot 4 channels simultaneous to here.
Wow.
This here shoots ambisonic. So this is going to shoot surround sound. So if I want to, hey, we're in a coffee shop and I want to deep in the background, but this is going to keep us very on mic. It's going to do noise reduction. It shoots to the cloud and it automatically mixes your show. Now I can tell you, I am an Emmy-winning sound professional. I've done sound for everybody from Scorsese to M. Night Shyamalan. This is as good as any audio device you can get. It's excellent. So I had been working with No Mono. When I got into podcasts, I was interested in what they're doing. I reached out to the executives. They said, hey, can you do some beta testing for us? I said, sure. And as soon as I did, I thought, oh my God, people in film have wanted this forever, right?
Yeah.
But film pros are going to try to keep that out because, could threaten people. But for podcast, it was genius. And so we started doing table read. And I reached out to No Mono and I said, hey, we do our show in a world-class studio with some of the most famous people. You're trying to get some market penetration with this device that's excellent. How about instead of shooting it with these $5,000 microphones, we'll shoot the whole thing with yours, right? Then you can say, look at this #1 show in fiction. You want to hear how good we sound? Every voice is recorded on our mic and, here's Fred Armisen or, Tom Holland or whomever speaking into our mic. So they were great. They said, yeah, let's do this together. They kicked in some cash to support that script. It was Scooter Braun's script, Love and Darkness, which is excellent, written by Sonny Postiglione, who did Vampire Diaries and Bloodline with Sissy Spacek. He did that too. And it was terrific. They kicked in cash. They flew out an engineer from Norway and it was fantastic. But that elevated our show. So that's not money, right? But that's optics, which you can cash in on. And that really assisted us in our monetization. I mean, they kicked in a good amount of equipment that, we continue to use, which is great. The next thing we did a giveaway with Mackie. Now, again, that's not money, but it is value. So you have to think of, is money something that you can put in your account and declaring your taxes? Or I think it's an asset. So
absolutely. And I think it's every facet of your journey with table read is using what you have, right? And we've seen celebrity podcasts out there. There are, I don't want to say a dime a dozen, but they're pretty popular. And
the misnomer is,
absolutely,
people think because you have a celebrity, you will have downloads.
It's an automatic hit, right? People think celebrity equals hit. It's not at all. And I think you created a format that's so unique to podcasting. And I've heard Alice speak on this as well. And we're talking about Alice Florence Orr from Podcast Review. She's the managing editor, which is a fantastic newsletter that shares new podcasts coming out and things like that. And, I've heard her speak about what she likes to feature. And one of the things she said is really, podcasts that are made for the medium. And when you think of a table read, right, you don't necessarily have to watch it because you're not seeing costumes. You're not seeing blocking, which is where the actors physically are. You're hearing their voices. You're hearing, like you said, those tones and inflections they're adding to the script and those jokes and the way they're bringing life to it with their voices. And so it's such a great use case in terms of, something that you've taken in terms of your professional experience in the entertainment industry and brought it into the medium as something that's so medium specific, right? And instead of going out to, brands that are like, oh, a celebrity podcast, let's partner. It's like, hey, actually, here's a product that works so well for multiple voices in the same room.
Well, listen, what is the advertiser trying to do? Anybody with a podcast says, I want an advertiser, whether it's Dropbox or whatever. So everybody wants them, but I think in any transaction, you have to have more to offer than you do to ask, right? Unless you're someone who's so famous, you can exploit people. And I think many people want ad dollars, but, are they offering access to an audience? Are they offering more than just what the offer gives? Listen, I worked with No Mono. They gave us money to use their product. And again, it's almost like a product placement. So there's another way to make money, right? Yeah. We're working on a show where there's a water company and we put water and we get a little, every time the celebrity picks up water, there's, so-and-so, that famous person drinking that water. But we offered more than we asked. They're trying to develop their product. We're in a world-class studio. Our engineer has, gold records. Everyone on the mic is an Oscar or Emmy nominee, and it's the right place to see their equipment. It's like tires on a race car. So initially we said, hey, we're audio pros and production pros. Rather than reach out to McDonald's and Progressive as much as we would like them, let's go to our community. Let's use your mics. We are the most credible people in the industry. And so money came that way. Then, as I said, we had a partnership with Mackie. Once we started getting some real celebrity on stage, and that was earned. It wasn't, by the way, everyone who shows up on our show shows up for the same amount of money. So whether you see Mark Hamill, who you've seen on our show, or someone who played a cadaver on one CSI, literally they both get exactly the same thing and the same participation and the same back end and everything. So why are these people showing up? Because it is real community. So once we got that, we got, I think our first endorsement was about $5,000 for a liquor sponsor. And all we had to do was pour the liquor on stage and toast the show. Hey, we're going to toast the show. We have Mark Hamill, Rosario Dawson, and Tom Holland, and we're doing all this stuff. And aren't we doing something wonderful? And by the way, a minority-owned liquor company, award-winning, all these, gold medals, but they're trying to compete with Seagram's and, every other major liquor company. So how can they penetrate? Well, a picture of Rosario Dawson drinking their liquor is going to be meaningful to them. She's thrilled to toast the show. She participates in what we do, and everybody wins. So there was that product placement that got us money. And then you get into the programmatic advertising. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to sign up here and sign up there and get the programmatic advertising. And I can tell you, we've worked with Octagon and Megaphone and Realm, and we were on Buzzsprout. Now we're on Red Circle, who is fantastic. I'm not paid to endorse them. But it's sort of like if you go over to every barber in town, you get a bad haircut and then you get a great one. You're like, oh, Jesus, what have I been doing?
I think everybody has their favorite hosting company and ad platform. It's definitely one of those things where within the industry, and, I think that's very specific to the kind of podcast that everybody has. And
listen, you either do business one way or you don't. So some people, if you show up in a tuxedo and a Rolls Royce at a restaurant, you'll get one level of service. And if you show up, in baggy jeans and, a cash pay and not a credit card, you get another level of service. My father owned department stores, and a customer who has a suit gets the same level of service as the customer buying socks.
Absolutely.
So,
very important.
I found that platforms, it's almost like agents in Hollywood. As soon as you get a little success, you start getting approached because everyone wants their finger on it. In case something happens, they're part of that success. So early on, platforms and distributors will reach out to you as soon as you get that first little taste, telling you everything they'll do for you. They're just along for a percentage of something if you get it. They don't want to sell you or raise you up. So that's the first wave that came. And then it's always disappointing. Here's why these ads don't count, or this payout is slower. Here's where it's going to take 6 months. And I think that's just what people have to go through. There's literally money 360. I mean, now we are getting, maybe we are less than 3 years out, but now we're hearing from Green Chef and Audible and Dropbox and Progressive, and we're getting offers for 5 figures to do something for 30 days.
Yeah.
And originally that was not the case.
Yeah. I mean, I think, not every show starts with big money, and that transition is a very interesting one. I really resonate with what you're saying.
Literally, Mark, Sean, and I put up our own money.
Yeah.
We reached out to the community. We said, here's what we're doing. We're going to include everybody. We have an equity share model. So a lot of people say, oh, I want a podcast, but I don't know how to record, or I don't have a marketing budget, or I'm not, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, the answer is partnership. You can't pay people to care. If you don't have a lot of money, you're going to hire people who work for not a lot of money and don't care. And partnership gives you something completely different. It gives you total investment. So
absolutely.
Every actor
you can't pay someone to care. That's such a big one.
Listen, in our model, once we have recouped, each actor gets $1 out of every 100 we make on their episode. It's very easy to quantify. And so, everyone participates, everyone succeeds. Actors writers sell their script, actors showcase. And we've tried to do everything like that. Once we did that, we started getting approached with other opportunities. So right now we're doing a show called GRG with Marty Jaramello, who's a CBS Sports analyst on Sunday. Yep. And, he does a show where the top 1% of the top 1% tell you how they compete. So if you have a billionaire who's competing against billionaires and doing a little better, what is he doing that others aren't? If you have a top ranked NFL player who's doing better than the next guy. How is he achieving that 0.2 of a second in his time to beat the next great guy? What level of diligence might we talk to? Gropoli was on. He founded Vitamin Water and Body Armor. He started stocking shelves in the Bronx, and now he's worth $6.1 billion. So, we had Daisy Arlarte who's on, who owns the Ritz-Carlton Nomad in New York. Again, she started with nothing, and now she owns 3 Ritz-Carlton hotels. And so they've shared the code. And again, it's a very community show. But opportunities come all sorts of places, because even how does your show make money? Once your show has optics and make money, other people in shows will reach out and say, hey, how are you doing this? And we want to do it too. I think the biggest mistake is there's a lot of advice that goes like this. Hey, if you want to get fit, work out and eat right. Right. Well, that's not, hey, if you want to have a podcast, have a newsletter and do so-and-so. That doesn't really tell you what you need to do. That tells you what you already know.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's going to be different for every show and every
100%.
audience. And
100%.
it's so important to tap into that spirit of service. That's been such a major theme within PodBiz, within the business of podcasting and monetization within the industry. Everybody has to be service oriented. Whether you're a hosting company, you're serving the podcasters. If you work in ads, you're serving brands. If you are a podcaster, you're serving your audience. It's continually about that spirit of service. And I think, what you've spoken about specifically within Table Read is that you have that favored nation status where everybody gets paid the same, right?
100%.
Getting a piece of the pie in terms of the monetization of the show. And you've created a community where people are excited to be part of something. They're getting paid. And then as a result, the advertisers want to be part of that as well. And it's I'm going back to this because it's such a great example of a podcast that's made for the medium of podcasting.
It's so much more organic than that, though, because you think of how it works out, but really, honestly, it's a win-win for everyone.
It's a win-win-win-win. Yeah.
Table reads go on anyway, right? And every every writer in Hollywood, I don't care if you're, Joe Esterhaus, right? There are scripts that are sitting in your drawer and you're like, man, that's such a great story, but it's just Hollywood's buying hero pictures. They don't want to hear about a mother struggling with cancer, right? Best script I ever wrote. So table reads go on to lift up the community. All we did was turn on a mic in what happens organically.
Yeah.
But even outside of that, it's not a calculated effort to make money. We have engaged in philanthropy because we can. If you do a show with a major studio, you can't just attach any charity you want because maybe they're doing business with this or that, or there's nothing that, but we said, hey, like with Scooter Braun's script, which was about a refugee family, we chose a refugee charity to get 5% of the proceeds from that episode. We didn't have to ask anybody. We didn't have to do anything. We reached out to the charity and we said, these are the celebrities involved. We'd like to elevate your message. We don't ask anything. Right. And suddenly this charity, this international, is promoting our show and we're promoting that charity. They get money from us. Maybe people will go give to that cause. We're doing one now called Small Block, which will be out soon. A writer, Ashley Finn, which is, an amazing project. And again, we're doing, philanthropy. Every time we have a script, we say to the writers, if there is a cause that is meaningful to you, if it ties into this script, if the script is about, children's school or someone struggling with this, you can always find a charity that aligns with the mindset. It's something that we put out there on literally every project. So I think, I post this all the time. I'm sure it sounds like the more who have benefited from our success, the more successful we have become. I'm not joking. It's like a tidal wave, and it's the antithesis of what the studios do. When you sign a studio deal, which is a lot of people think I need a pitch deck. I need to pitch I got to send it to Audible. I need to pitch iHeart, right? If they buy IP without audience, they're going to lowball you. You're going to end up getting 1 or 2% of your show that you never see. You're going to cash up front to produce it. If you have audience, and by the way, audience is an audio term, not a video term. If you have an audience, they'll pay more for that. And so I think that's where the money is. And the audience is attracted through community. We can't afford a billboard on Sunset. So how do we get heard? By the way, and you talk about money, we talked about this before. There are so many podcast awards and festivals and conventions where you can submit your work for recognition. Now, why would I do that? It costs money and no one's ever heard of the Buffalo, New York, festival. And why would I? Well, the reason is because you can't afford marketing or PR. And there's a small festival that does, right? So immediately, if you're in the fiction category or the politics category or comedy or whatever, you're going to be there with all those other shows where audience members who like that kind of material see you listed with other
Yeah.
shows, which is great. That's going to up your SEO. You do that. Listen, and you do that to the magnitude of 10 or 100, and suddenly your show is so much more discoverable. You're with those other shows. And listen, if you're good enough, you're going to get recognized. I mean, I'm telling you, we won the 2025 Webby against 2 Audible titles, an iHeart title, Danny Trejo, and Jane Austen. And we didn't have a PR firm. We didn't pay anybody. We didn't buy any ad space. It was just based on quality. So I say this all the time. It does not matter how you get in front of Simon Cowell. But when you get there, you better be able to sing, because that's all anyone's going to know. No one's going to know your struggle. They're just going to say, holy fuck, that person can do it. And I think it's the same thing with podcasts. So you can get yourself optics, but you better be able to deliver when you get there, because once you do, the advertisers will come, the money will come, the opportunities will come. We were approached with a TV shopping agreement just because we did what we did. We didn't have an agent.
No, amazing to be, that focused on quality is something that all podcasters really have to commit to in terms of.
It was the weakest underbelly. When I went from television and film sound, right? I started in recording studios with, I'll tell you, I like to say Ray Charles and that sort of stuff, but, Color Me Bad. It was one of my last things that I did with a couple of Cool and the Gang guys.
Yeah.
I had always been in recording studios, loved it. And just like you and everyone in podcasts, always a creative. But as soon as I started listening to podcasts, the content was there, but it sounded like college radio to me. I thought, boy, it just doesn't sound right. And so when you want to go to Audible, you want to go to iHeart, you want to go to Universal, you want to go to Warner Brothers, and you think, boy, the show's so good, they're going to see through it. They're not. If you have a great song, but a bad singer singing the demo, you can't expect the record company to know that that's a great song, because the demos they hear, and these are demos, come to them from Pharrell.
Top of the top. Yeah.
They come
top
from
of the
Pharrell,
top.
and they come from Lil Uzi Vert, and they come from even their demos, and those things sound slick. So immediately I thought the sound isn't there. And just because I'm a storyteller, I thought, well, where can we go? The softest underbelly in podcasts was definitely fiction podcast. I thought the stories were ill-conceived many times. After you get over that thin veneer, the acting was atrocious 9 times out of 10, right? And it's
Tell
just
us
like,
how you really feel, Jack.
listen, you see good acting. It's almost,
It's very hard to get a fiction podcast right. I think when you do, you get it really right, but it's rare. It's more rare than, let's say, Society and Culture, for sure.
100%, or sports. That's just, there's, you got to get heard above a lot of noise. And just like you said, just because someone's a celebrity doesn't mean it's good, but there's a lot of noise. You have a lot of legitimate people in sports doing sports podcasts that go nowhere, but now you have to compete against all those people. But in scripted, the music, the needle drop music, horrible. Or, someone's friends who's a composer, fine, but it doesn't sound like what you hear when you go to a Marvel movie. Yet that's what they're trying to compete with. So to me, I thought, well, I have access to the actors. I have access to the stories. I have access to the studios. I've been trained as a storyteller by Scorsese and M. Night Shyamalan and blah, blah, blah. I think this is where we should start. And, immediately it was recognized. And, the problem with a fiction podcast is you listen and it's hard to tell who's talking. If you have 2 girls in a scene, there are two men in a scene, if their voices aren't different and it hasn't been written, so you don't know who's who and who's talking and where they are in the room, very confusing. By reading a script and all the exposition, Jim crosses and picks up a pen. He shrugs his shoulders and turns to Jane. I know what's happening. Now, I'm not saying that narration is necessary. I think it's better without, but it will guide your audience. And we also had the fourth wall breaks. So immediately, even in a forum, hey, fiction's already established, but no one's doing that. And I think when I watch Saturday Night Live, sometimes when it falls apart is as much fun as when it works.
Absolutely. I think that feeling of being part of something that the audience gets is part of that community that you're building. It absolutely feeds into it. Well, Jack, I want to ask you something as well. You've talked about, what mindset you have to have and just, how you've built Table Read, which, I mean, honestly, like you said, actors and scriptwriters, they're already doing this. They already want this, and so you've built just such an incredible show. And that's just that one show. What's something that people don't know about what you do?
Well, I can tell you it's it's more than a full-time job. I mean, Mark and I both wake up and, immediately, I mean, I have a full day of table read and meetings and now legal. It's not a bad thing. It's just a necessary evil because you really deal with some people, their only game is how much can they get out of a transaction personally. And as you grow, you're going to deal with those people.
Yeah.
I just did a LinkedIn post where I said, if you want to compete, no matter how much community, you have to know at a certain point, you're going to handshake with the devil. It's going to happen. So you have to be prepared for that. It's like, Mark said to me, this is what we asked for. You're going to have people who are going to try to get over. You're going to have people who are going to try to get more. You're going to have people who know that there's a rights issue, but if you sign it, and so that's going to happen. I think the most important thing, I mean, the volume of work is what most people don't know. People always look at someone and say, you're an overnight success in 10 years or 15 years or whatever. It's interesting. We got our first, really decent offer the other day. It came unsolicited, and it even kind of impressed us. I sent it to my partner, and I said, "Do you think this is a typo?" Because the number was.
That's when you're doing well, right? Did they add a couple extra zeros on there?
I'm telling you the truth. I took a screenshot and I sent it to my partner. I said, "Do you think this is a typo?" Because you're so used to. It's almost like if you're used to working for $20 an hour, and suddenly someone says, here's $2,000 an hour. You're like, well, this can't be right. But those opportunities come at great expense. And as I said, when we started Table Read, it was our own money. It was deficit finance. We didn't just say, I always think it's funny. A lot of people approach me and say, here's my thing, and I want to do a pitch deck, and I want to pitch it to people. And I say, well, would you pitch a song by showing a sheet music and lyrics to a record company? Because that's what you're doing. And if you're not part of Audible or iHeart, and you're only as invested as putting in a piece of paper and then you're on to the next thing, why are they going to be more invested in you when you don't even believe in it yourself more than, some piece of paper? So I think there has to be a level of personal investment and personal exposure. We called in friends from our community, and, and oftentimes there's people who you only get one call to. And so we called in those chits and we put in the work, and we continue to put in the work. So some people say, oh, you have a show and you have celebrities. Well, you and I both know celebrities don't equal downloads or success. They don't. I hear people say, if I can get this to, I'm like, I know those people. I can get it to them. First of all, you're not going to get their attention. Even if they did, you'd end up with nothing. Why do they know you? You don't think they're approached by 1 million people a day? You have to have something to offer them. So I think even though we came to podcast with receipts from another industry, it's not worth anything. Now, 3 years out, we're just starting to get some respect. And there are community members like Alice, like Greg Wasserman. There are so many more of these people. And I just posted about this. Everywhere else in entertainment, you don't have these sort of community members who exist at a high level, right? In entertainment, you blow by those people, and then you're dealing with studios and agents and lawyers, and there's no community in sight to raise up or police or offer introductions. And in podcast, there's still a very, very strong community. And when you talk about where is the money in podcast, the money is in that community, right? I'm just telling you, you want to find the money, you find that community. And if you're genuine, you're going to have partners in helping you decode your treasure map. And for everyone, it is different. But I'm telling you, advertising comes many ways. As I said, programmatic, host-read, product placement. You can get sponsors for your show. We're doing one now. We have a good 6 figures of sponsorship for a new show that never existed before. And we got the money to produce the show 100% with sponsors' money. It's not a branded podcast. It's just an alignment of the audience they want, the message they want to promote, and the message that we are promoting. And now, because we have 3 years behind us and a podcast and
a track record. Yeah,
that's right. So listen, our show's been, on the charts for 130 weeks, right? Yep. That's more than any Marvel show. That's more than any Realm show. That's more than any iHeart show, certainly in fiction, 100%. It's more than any major studio has delivered. So they can promote any star they want or any show that was on the charts for 2 days that they want, but we've maintained,
that track record.
Without
the
so production Viagra that they take.
I think first of all, I love that term, production Viagra.
Well, I have to keep up on the charts, and rather
I absolutely know what you're talking about. And I think I'm going to credit you. I'm going to credit you for that forever. Production Viagra. It's a Jack Levy term, but I also think that having that track record, you have to love it, right? And you have to love the people you work with and you have to love what you're doing. I think that that really speaks to it. Like you said, you put your own money into it. You have to believe in what you're doing. And that's just such a big part of it. I also wanted to ask you, if you had to start over today, is there anything that you would do differently to grow faster or smarter?
Oh my God, no. Listen, I have to tell you, I came into LA to do music in the 80s, which was great, but breaking into the record company is tough. And film and TV, again, breaking in there is tough. There's these gatekeepers. There's no gatekeeper. You and I could decide today, we're going to read a script and put it out, and literally tomorrow it could be on Apple.
Yep.
So, and the other difference is, if I want to be in the top 10 on Netflix, I have to make a deal with Netflix or Apple or anyone else. In podcast, I can be on iHeart, Spotify, Apple. I can be right next to Joe Rogan. I can be right next to Marvel. I can be right next to Smartless, right? With no gatekeeper and no excuses. So I think right now the entry point is much quicker, and I'm sort of a social media Luddite, right? I grew up without this in my hand, but that is in people's hands 94% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that I can get something to someone, now an algorithm will push it. I don't need a billboard on Sunset. I can just hop right into the flow, and an algorithm will push content that has common denominators with what you like or anyone else. So if you have any degree of shameless self-promotion, a lot of people spend time posting selfies, right? They could use the same diligence to promote their brand and to promote their community. So I think the entry point is pretty quick. And I think the problem is not the problem. It's actually an asset for smart people. Everyone is standing in the same line. Oh, I need a newsletter. Oh, I need to talk to this subject.
Yeah.
There are a lot of subject matter experts in podcast who are only famous because, or noted because they're subject matter experts. It's like a trainer who has a flabby body and has never won a decent award, right? They talk about it. They're at the conventions. They've had a revolving door policy of jobs where they were at this platform for 1 year and this platform in another year. They've never achieved any podcast success on their own. They've never had any partnership that was worth anything on their own, right? They've appeared on panels with other people and been a cog in a machine they don't know how to build. And they're giving out advice to people who so desperately need advice. And all they're saying is, work out right and pay for my seminar. And that's how you'll get fit. And it just isn't how it works. I think do not wait. It's funny because I'm not a big fan of Mr. Wonderful's politics, right? I think he's kind of a difficult person. But he just put out a post about speed versus quality. And I agree. Speed does trump quality. But if you know what you're doing, quality is going to come inherently, right? If I'm a decent basketball player, even my worst shot's going to be pretty good, right? So a lot of people overthink it. What am I going to do? How am I going to launch it? I need this and that. And meanwhile, you can have product out there. And I have to tell you, look at anyone's first show versus their 100th show.
Absolutely. Done is better than perfect every day of the week. Absolutely.
You can put out a show for free. I don't, look, you can go to Megaphone. They're happy to help you, even though they have their motives for such things. But there's nothing that stops you from recording. We're on Riverside. You could record on this. I think my first piece of advice is when you look at what you don't have. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have studio space. I don't know what microphone is good, right? Don't pay people. Find partners. Find collaborators. Right? Yeah. If a lawyer is my partner, I'm not going to have to pay him hourly, and every contract is not going to be a problem. And he's part of the deal, right? If I don't have a recording studio, but I know there's a recording studio that's, dark half the week, go talk to the owner and say, hey, let's do this. It'll be an ad for your studio. We can put in a spot for it. And suddenly you have everything you need in partnership. A lot of people don't want to give away. I'm telling you, Mark and I see it all the time. Sometimes people approach us and they don't want to share what they have because they feel it's such gold. But it's worth nothing. It's in their mind. No one knows about it. So 100% of nothing has no value.
It's an idea, right? Whereas, I think within podcasting, you're right. It's about doing the hard yards. It's about, getting yourself out there, and done is better than perfect. And there is something to be said, about having professionalism and best practices. You have a background in audio.
If you don't, find someone who does, it's really easy.
Exactly.
And don't just try to find the cheapest editor on Upwork.
We're such a collaborative industry. Like everybody, every name you've mentioned today, everybody that I know, we're always happy to help. Everybody that you've met, whether at a conference or in person or through LinkedIn, they're always happy to hop on a call with you. So I think that really speaks to the industry. And, apart from that community aspect, which just weaves itself so much through your success, what are you excited about coming up within the podcasting industry?
That we're doing or that the industry has?
Both.
The most interesting thing for me, and again, even with all the Hollywood work and the name dropping and all, I might as well have been a celebrities pool guy. The sound guy, just because you work with The Rock, doesn't mean you live like him or he invites you to his parties, right?
Yeah.
And he might like you. And by the way, Dwayne is great.
This is a very, very big, important thing you're saying, actually. I grew up in Los Angeles, and being celebrity adjacent and being close to power like that is very seductive for a lot of people, but you are in no way living the life they're living. Yes.
Yeah, that's the misnomer. I tell everyone this, I work with, I say to everybody, I say celebrities are like wild animals. Okay, you're going to see them and you're going to work with them, but it's like a bear. I say, oh, a bear. If I get out of the car and I get close to the bear, oh, look at the bear. I'm going to pose for a picture. Oh, look at the bear. The bear doesn't get hurt in that situation. The only thing that happens is I get hurt. So a lot of people get real close with celebrity and it doesn't quite work out the way they want. And I think you have to treat them like wild animals. Fun to see, how wonderful. I'm so excited, but, get too close. And again, the misnomer is they're going to equal. Listen, plenty of celebrities have been on no-name podcasts and they go nowhere. We were doing a podcast and the guy, he had Bryce Hall on. I don't know if you know who Bryce Hall is, but he had Bryce Hall on and it's going to break the internet. Bryce Hall, and by the way, Bryce was great. I loved him, even if you don't like personally. I loved his stories. He talked about how he came up in podcast. He was beat up, in high school. He was beat up. People took his money. He used to eat in the bathroom stall alone in high school, so he didn't get beat up. And so that's why he started podcasting.
But he has a big presence, right?
Now he's huge, right? And now it's the antithesis of that. All those people wish they knew him, and I'm sure he could ring their bell 100 times now. But it's interesting because it was sold to us that it would break the internet. And it didn't. So I think that's the misnomer. But listen, here's what happens. When I said I was getting into podcast in my immediate Hollywood community, there was interest from everyone, even stars. Oh, I have an idea for a podcast, everyone said, right? Even if I go home to Buffalo, New York, everyone has an idea for a podcast. As we've grown, more and more opportunities come at us, right? And here's what's interesting. Here is our niche. Everyone has a different niche, like you said. Mark came from a legitimate studio at MTV, right? And I came from crafting sound for people who really cared, not as a podcast producer. So when the creative side of Hollywood wants to do a podcast, they don't know who to talk to. But on the creative side, hey, I've been in a studio jamming with you. Hey, you do podcasts. What do you think about this idea? We were approached with a new a true crime opportunity that I think is as massive as anything, and a lot like table read. Comes with super high optics, comes with access other people don't have, no matter how big it is, and presents it in a way that an audience who loves it has never had access, right? I'm not talking about someone crafting some hyped dialogue where they're going to play a cue and now you're in the killer's brain and this is what happened. I'm talking about really being in the killer's brain, which is interesting. We have a music project coming up. As I said, I started in music a long time ago. A Grammy winner and a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer reached out with something that is unbelievable. And I love what Questlove is doing in music. I think there's some people who are bringing that genuine face of music, and I think we're bringing something there. But again, here's what's interesting, right? When you say, where is the money in podcast, right? Hey, I want an ad. I don't think that's where the money is, because if you elevate something to where McDonald's is going to pay you, then Universal is going to come looking, and that IP has value. That IP can be valued now. I can value table read IP. I can go to a bank and take out a loan against table read IP. So you can factor that money. I mean, I'm not giving a financial lesson, but if you're a retailer, let's say you have a t-shirt company and Jeffries in the meatpacking district wants to buy 100 shirts from you that they're going to sell for $5,000 each, right? You don't have the money. I don't have $100,000 or $200,000 to make Jeffries t-shirts now, because I'm not going to get paid until November, but I need to make them now. Once you have that order, you can go to a factorer, sort of like a bank loan. I have an order from Jeffries. This is going to pay 100% in November, but I don't have it now. So it's like a payday loan for businesses. Businesses like Ralph Lauren, when they get an order for 1 million socks, they factor that order. So you can borrow against future money. IP has value. And I think that's where there's massive value. But even beyond that, You have licensing. Let's say I have a podcast and American Airlines is hey, we're going to play this in our audio feed on our flight. That's a licensing deal. Now that you have a library, hey, I have 6,000. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing. I'll use a friend as an example though, because we have two things for money, and hopefully you can edit these together because, as I said, it's 360. Money in podcasts is like a goddamn Easter egg hunt when you're 3. The money is fucking everywhere, right? And everyone is just looking at the biggest egg. But if you're paying attention, I'm not even joking. You fill your basket and you're going to have a few of those jelly beans that are going to be way more than that big motherfucker that everyone else went against.
It's true.
So I'll tell you something
You're
else.
totally
I
right.
haven't even mentioned this. There's so much money everywhere. I haven't even mentioned it, right? We don't have Patreon. It's not that we're not into that yet, but I'll tell you, here's the deal. If you're going to do an independent podcast like ours, you have to focus on the quality, right? It's like a burger stand.
Yeah.
If I want to focus with McDonald's, right, I'm not going to have a bigger ad campaign. If I'm going to be like In-N-Out, right, I'm not going to have the optics. So I have to have the best fucking burger. So there's a line around the block for my little burger stand, right?
Yeah.
And then the newspaper writes it up. And then there's all that. So you have to keep, doing the things that you can do that the majors aren't. So Patreon is great. I know someone who has 20,000 Patreon subscribers for their podcast. It's a YouTube podcast. They have over 5,000 episodes. They started themselves. They have over 20,000 subscribers at a minimum rate of $9.99. Now you do the math. And I'm going to tell you something else about those people. It's not my show. Maybe I'll introduce you to them after if they want to discuss this with. You can have them on.
We'd love to.
They make more in merchandising than they make in their Patreon. Okay. So we've just gotten into merchandising. And by the way, this isn't an ad. I thought, how cute, I'll wear it.
Great sweatshirt, Jack. Looking good.
But so I think we didn't even talk about Patreon. We didn't even talk about, I know an athlete who has a subscription podcast only, right? And 5,000 people are signed up at $29 a month, right? So let's say you're a celebrity with the right kind of optics and you want a podcast. Yeah. Well, if you have the right community.
Yeah, it's really about that community.
You can have a very small vertical. Hey, I only have 1,000 people, but I'm an expert in turkey hunting, right? So people are going to sign up at, $5 a month and I have 1,000 people and now I'm making $5,000 a month for my turkey hunting podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely.
So, I think there's many ways to go, but I think monetization is based on your audience. And if you want sponsors, you have to figure out how you can deliver more to them than they can get themselves for less money.
Yeah. Jack Levy, it has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for joining us on PodBiz.
Listen, I'm happy to be here anytime, and I know I'm all over the place. I know I'm completely scattered, but the bottom line is literally there is money everywhere in podcast. But unless you're going to invest in yourself, you cannot expect someone else's money to equal care or personal investment. And you cannot think that because someone is a celebrity, that you're going to get coverage, because there's plenty of celebrities who get no coverage.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.